Nearly 35 years after its opening, there is no denying that Disneyland Paris is doing better than it ever was from both a financial standpoint and expansions and additions to the resort. One could also say that the Parisian resort is now entering a new era in its history, and now that becomes even clearer with the exit of President Natasha Rafalski as she leaves office for a new position, leaving the parks in the hands of Christophe Murphy very soon. There is much more to be said regarding this major change, but this is far from being the only evidence of this new age. In today's video, I'll examine how the resort is doing, how it's positioning itself for the future as new players emerge, and what I expect and would like to see from Murphy's tenure as president. Let's start with the obvious. Disney Adventure World was a major turning point. It finally expanded a second gate, making it more worthy of the Disney name, but even that is really just a start. There are many projects to revitalize older areas of the park and also expand it soon with new offerings. As the park becomes a good product for guests from all over the world, focus can also slowly start to shift towards the Disneyland park. It's obvious that in the past 20 years, investment had to flow towards Walt Disney Studios, as that's the park that needed the fixing, but that left the original one longing for something new. Either way, the present seat isn't the only new blood coming to take over. The lead Imagineer behind the resort has also shifted not long ago. Now, Michel Dendolk oversees the teams and projects created for Disneyland Paris. Michel has had a lot of experience in theme parks, having worked on Efteling before being recruited by Walt Disney Imagineering to bring the world of Frozen to life. It's clear that he's passionate about the resort, having cited in an interview that his favorite attraction soundtrack comes from the original iteration of Space Mountain from the Earth to the Moon. Some small projects announced under him also add depth and interest to existing parts of the park, such as adding some scenes inspired by old concepts to the rivers of the Far West. The Lion King is the first major project under his leadership of the teams, having also worked on World of Frozen, but this one that promises to be something completely new and epic in scale. So from a creative perspective, Walt Disney Imagineering Paris looks to be in great hands. The Walt Disney Company is a huge beast, and major changes have happened at the leadership level as well. This year we saw Bob Iger, who has been at the helm for over 20 years, expanding the House of Mouse like never before with major acquisitions, leave. The theme parks also saw many major projects, with Shanghai Disneyland being the largest one, with several others from Galaxy's Edge, Disney Adventure World, Pandora the World of Avatar, Avengers Campus, Toy Story Land, and many more, all bringing new experiences and attractions to guests. Josh D'Amaro, who served as the president of Disneyland and the chairman of Disney Experiences, got a promotion and has now begun his tenure as CEO of the Walt Disney Company. Under him, the parks segment announced its largest expansion projects, with every single resort either opening or building new experiences. Dana Walden became CFO, she who led the studios and Hollywood side of the company for a few years. I believe that this is a strong duo that together have a lot of potential to breathe new life into the company. It'll be very interesting to follow their work. What I hope to see from them is to bring creatives to the top levels, have them in the room where the decisions are being made, as Disney is, in the end, a company that built itself on the shoulders of some of the best creative minds to walk the earth. Natasha Rafalski's time as president of Disneyland Paris saw highs and lows, but in the end, I personally believe there's a lot to praise. Rafalski inherited the resort after the company had bought it and announced the major expansion of Walt Disney Studios Park, but it was up to her to implement it. The COVID pandemic would put a sudden stop in mostly everything, and it was a hard time to pass through. I feel like the reopening of Disneyland Paris after the shutdowns were incredibly handled, but the best time in years came with the 30th anniversary. With a painfully small budget and many dreams, the resort was able to create so much. From the barely reskinned parade and hub show to the sound of Ready for the Ride that's to this day praised by fans and guests alike, to the pre-show with drones, a first in the Disney parks with Un Monde qui s'illumine. This was a major success. The following year saw the continuation of the construction on the second gate, and in 2026, it finally opened to everyone with much to explore. It's fitting for Rafalski to end her time by opening Disney Adventure World. And now, she leaves her position to lead Disney Signature Experiences, which oversees the Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, Aulani, Disney Vacation Club, Story Living by Disney, and a few other smaller ones. On the other hand, Christoph Murphy takes the lead. He has been working at the Disney company for 35 years, having begun in 1991 as Assistant Manager of Security Operations at Euro Disneyland, climbed the ladder to become the Director of Disney Village in the early 2000s, Director of F&B and Vice President of Products, and in the early 2020s, Murphy left the Disneyland Paris Resort and went to Tokyo Disneyland, where he served as Vice President of Operations for almost 2 years before coming back to Paris in 2023 as Senior Vice President of Operations. It's clear that Christoph has a lot of experience in many of the sectors that make the resort, from the hotels to food and operations, and having lived through all the historic chapters of the Parisian resort, slowly climbing the ladder, he truly has a real connection to it. I am very excited to see what Murphy brings to the table as president, but having this deep connection is an amazing first impression, as I hope he'll fight for Disneyland Paris, making sure leadership in California invests more into the parks. Another important change was the appointment of a new Disney Experiences chairman. The role passed to Thomas Mazloum, he who ran Disney Signature Experiences during its biggest expansion time, with the cruise line now operating more ships than ever and the Disneyland Resort. So it's clear that a lot has shifted behind the scenes of the Disney parks around the world, but my wish remains the same, that is to bring creatives to the top levels and have them contribute to decision making. But let's talk about Disneyland Paris now. As I said, with Disney Adventure World, there's already been a huge shift, but having walked the paths around the lake, it becomes clear that one of the ideas behind it is to lay the groundworks for expansions to come, Lion King being the first. We've discussed this project in the past. We've read and explored all the blueprints and permits and followed all the bits and pieces of information regarding this major ride that will dethrone Pirates of the Caribbean as the largest show building in the two parks. Even with construction ramping up, it'll still be a few years before we can hop aboard a boat and sing with Timon and Pumbaa. Next year, the resort will celebrate its 35th anniversary, and once more, Disneyland Paris is expected to bring new entertainment and push the boundaries of what can be done at a theme park. Disney Village continues its makeover and is expected to then expand with a completely new area filled with shops and restaurants, linking two sides of the resort together and redoing one of the entrances into the Disney bubble with a new hotel possibly joining in the not-so-distant future. Other projects also include different possible expansions to Disney Adventure World, refurbishments or rethemes of attractions in the Disneyland Park, and I hope an expansion or two as well. However, if Murphy leads the resort for as long as Rafalski did, his tenure will have a few large clouds above the resort. In 2031, the biggest theme park in European soil in a long time is expected to open in Bedford as Universal UK. This will undoubtedly hit Disneyland Paris' market share, as the UK is a very large market for the resort, but also as many possible guests compare the brand new theme park with new ride technology to an aging Disneyland park. I expect the competition from the Universal project to bring new investment and innovation for Disneyland Paris. All of this that Murphy will oversee. Then, as you may know, the deal between the French government and Disney has different clauses regarding expansion, with one of them on the need to continue investing in the resort, culminating in a third gate. This mythical park has to be presented in the 2030s, depending on visitor numbers, but if one is to be built, Disney should have to present a project by 2036 under the current agreement, or they would lose the ability to develop the major area allocated for that project, with the state then selling it to the highest bidder. Knowing this, it's obvious that the resort's president will eventually have to deal with the idea of the third park, and I believe Disney could truly go towards having this built. I made a video a while back exploring all the different infrastructure improvements being done around the parks with both Disney and public funds, many of which indicate that a major expansion to the right side of the resort is quite possible. These include major roadworks and the construction of a multi-million euro new electrical substation exclusively for Disneyland Paris that future-proofs its electrical needs. I recommend watching that video, I'll have it linked in the end card. However, since then, another hint was uncovered. Euro Disney Imagineering, the separate company that designs everything for the Paris parks, updated their official business description in the 2025 annual accounts. It used to read, "Studies and construction monitoring for complementary attractions at the Disneyland Paris theme parks." However, last year, it expanded significantly to cover the conception, construction, and delivery of attractions and infrastructure for Disneyland Park and Walt Disney Studios Park, their expansion, and any other theme park within the Euro Disneyland project in France. The Euro Disneyland project is the official name of the original agreement under the 1987 convention between the state and Disney that, once again, says the third park must happen. The change is just one more hint of something possibly happening behind the scenes, but even without the third park looming over, the same new era for Paris parks has already begun. For years, Paris was neglected and underfunded. That is over by now. We've seen the opening of the biggest expansion in the history of the resort take place just last month, and the next big thing is already underway. With so many changes in leadership, new fresh ideas and ways of thinking are sure to breathe new life into the resort, and we know that's happening. I'm incredibly excited to see what the future brings to all the Disney parks around the world, but even more so to Disneyland Paris, as its incredible potential is finally starting to be realized. And I genuinely believe the best is still to come. And so I ask you, what would you like to see implemented under this new leadership? Let me know down below. And now, as always, thank you for watching, and that's a wrap.